When we last left off, Samura had awakened Crow's power, leaving the temple drenched in feathers and silence after defeating the Masumi. The feather swarm dissipates as Samura defeats the Dattenseki-wielding sorcerers. Moku is stunned by Tobimune's power. High in a branch, the Hishaku sorcerer marvels at Samura's speed and, recognizing the battle has shifted, teleports away in a burst of flames. Samura notices the enemy disappearing just a bit too late and is irritated, while Udoha and Hakuri return to the temple hall. Ro apologizes for needing to be saved, but Samura waves it off, telling them to thank Hakuri instead. Hakuri tells Udoha he thinks he can transport Kumiyori too, but Sumi stops him, explaining that his adrenaline is masking his injuries and his blood loss is still dangerous. They agree to continue treatment once they reach another Sanso, and Udoha notes they'll soon recover all the blades from the Hishaku. The Masumi note that with Samura holding Tobiune, he no longer requires bodyguards. Samura agrees, reminding them he had dismissed them to prevent them from being seriously harmed again. As they move through the temple, he checks that everyone is alright, only to discover a member fatally struck by enemy sorcery. Sumi explains the fallen member's background and praises his sacrifice, but Samura, gritting his teeth, disagrees, emphasizing that this loss is only the beginning of the conflict. In the theater, Hirohiku admits they lost Tobiune, but reasons the Hishaku's goal hasn't changed: to neutralize the Master Swordsman, with Yura wielding Shinichi. Chihiro vows to protect all the sword bearers. Hirohiku notes Chihiro's dedication is why Yura called him green, recalling how the sword bearers once used their enchanted blades to maintain peace under the Master Swordsman's leadership. Internally, Chihiro recalls learning the same from books, since his father never spoke of Shinichi or the Master Swordsman. Hirohiku suggests Chihiro knows little of the swordbearer's true nature, though he may have glimpsed it when witnessing Shinichi's power at the Rakuzaichi. Chihiro brushes this off, yet his thoughts drift back to that day, questioning whether Shinichi's power truly served to protect people, and if the Master Swordsman bore responsibility for the lives lost. He asks Hirohiku if he means that the Master Swordsman wasn't the hero everyone believed him to be. As Chihiro's thoughts grow hazy amid the lingering turmoil of the day, he misses Hirohiku's remark that Samura's belief in the Master Swordsman's guilt had driven him to strike a deal with Yura 3 years prior. Chihiro insists that regardless of the truth, letting the Hishaku take Shinichi would bring ruin to the nation. Hirohiku acknowledges Chihiro's resolve to protect the swordbearers, then reveals that Samura believed they all should perish. Stunned, Chihiro wonders if Samura had ties to the Hishaku. Hirohiku tells him to let it go, saying only their own conflict remains to be settled. At that moment, Hirohiku's butterflies release Kumiyori, briefly diverting Chihiro's focus. Seizing the chance, Hirohiku distracts him further before gripping Kumiyori with his teeth. Calling the blade's name, Hirohiku's sorcery collapses, the butterflies scattering into plain paper. Two faceless geisha-like spirits emerge as Kumiyori acknowledges its new wielder. Shocked, Chihiro wonders what has happened to Udoha, only to see dark bubbles forming nearby, the sign of Hakuri's storehouse. 7 minutes before Chihiro's transport from the theater, Moku carries Hakuri as he, Udoha, Samura, Sumi, and the Masumi leave through the eastern gate. Sumi urges Hakuri to rest after receiving first aid, warning that pushing himself could be dangerous. She thanks him for his help in recovering Tobiune and supporting Samura. As the group discusses their next steps, Hakuri drifts to sleep. Moments later, he wakes face down on the floor, surrounded by the unconscious monks and the Masumi. Ahead, he sees Udoha confronting Samura in anger. Taking a seat, Samura remarks they haven't truly spoken yet and says that even if every enchanted blade were recovered, the problem would remain. After all, Kunishige wouldn't have sealed them away otherwise. As his right hand grips his blade, Samura reflects that it has been 18 years since he last wielded Tobiune to defeat evil and protect the weak in Kunishige's name. Udoha reminds him he needs Tobiune to fight the Hishaku, the very ones responsible for Kunishige's death. Samura counters that there is a greater evil that must be judged, even if working with the Hishaku is required, shocking both Udoha and Hakuri. Samura solemnly declares that the swordbearers themselves were the true sin, having concealed their crimes during the Seitei War and been celebrated as heroes alongside Kunishige. His final mission, he reveals, is to erase the remaining 5 swordbearers from the Seitei War, himself included. Seeing Udoha at a loss for words, Samura adds that unlike the Hishaku, he will not harm the guardians of the swordbearers. Worried, Udoha yells that if Samura defeats him, the Hishaku could seize Kumiyori. Samura replies he will only let them use the enchanted blades temporarily until the master swordsman is gone, after which he will dispose of the Hishaku and prevent further misuse of the blades. He explains that his alliance with them is merely a means to track down the swords. Internally, Udoha admits defeating Samura with Tobiune would be nearly impossible and realizes Samura's plan might actually succeed. Rising to his feet, Samura declares they will resolve the matter of the enchanted blades themselves without dragging in the younger generation, saying only the corrupt will fall. Udoha stands and replies that while he understands Samura's intent, he refuses to surrender quietly. As the ground shakes and debris falls, Hakuri panics nearby, terrified that Udoha will lose the fight because he transported Tobiune instead of Kumiyori, and desperately begins sending Chihiro towards Second Tsuji. By this point, the two sword bearers have reached a nearby walkway. Samura sets down Tobiune, taking up a standard katana as Udoha prepares his own. Having shared their beliefs, Samura states that only action remains. The two move at once, blades flashing past each other. Samura's skills prove superior. Udoha is gravely wounded while Samura remains untouched. Accepting defeat, Udoha weakly asks if Samura intends to continue alone. Samura affirms this, saying no one else should share the burden of his mission, before striking once more to end the duel. In his fading moments, Hakuri manages to transport Chihiro to the walkway. Seeing Chihiro after 4 years, Samura frowns, remarking on the scent of battle that clings to him. Chihiro, in turn, is left speechless at the sight of Samura standing before Udoha's fallen body, black feathers drifting through the air. Realizing that Samura has defeated Udoha, Chihiro spots Hakuri nearby, and Samura reassures him that Hakuri is still alive. Trembling, Chihiro recalls Hirohiku's words and the Hishaku's actions, demanding to know why Samura would ever let them obtain the enchanted blades. Samura, visibly uneasy, acknowledges hearing about Chihiro's quest for revenge and his possession of a 7th blade. He urges Chihiro to set his sword down and leave the matter to him. Chihiro refuses, his voice shaking with anger as he declares that if Samura stands in his way, he'll treat him as an enemy. In the blur of motion, Samura moves past him, striking with Tobiune and leaving Chihiro collapsing to the ground. As Samura kneels to retrieve Enten, both Chihiro and the blade vanish. From a nearby roof, Samura spots Shiba and remarks it took him long enough to arrive. Shiba is alarmed by the situation. Chihiro gravely injured, Udoha gone, and Kumiyori at risk of falling into Hishaku hands. He questions Samura, who explains that the Hishaku intend to reveal the sword bearer's past actions, threatening to destabilize the country. He adds that the truth is a burden tied to their legacy as heroes, and realizing Chihiro was better off unaware, departs in a flutter of feathers, leaving Shiba calling out for Chihiro. 2 hours later, Yoji Udoha and Chihiro Rokuhira are both confirmed deceased. Later, Hirohiku sits in an almost empty warehouse, his right arm repaired by his colleague while his left remains a stump. Yura is nearby. Hirohiku reflects on Chihiro's disappearance just as their proper fight was about to start and acknowledges Chihiro's strength. He asks Yura why Kumiyori wasn't used, and Yura explains that it was a precaution since Samura was approaching. The Hishaku physician worries about their location being known, but Yura notes their freedom is limited due to dealing with the Satan War enchanted blade bearer. Elsewhere, Samura activates Owl, 2 giant owl eyes scanning the city. Spotting the Hishaku's energy signatures, he arrives at the warehouse. Samura criticizes the Hishaku for unnecessary casualties, while Yura defends their strategy, pointing out they obtained 2 blades and disrupted Hakuri. Samura suggests giving him Tobiune would have simplified matters, but Yura counters that Hirohiku and the others oppose heavy reliance on Samura. The two agree to uphold their deal, linking their 5th fingers with a small black band and an unbreakable promise. The Hishaku physician recalls that after Kunishige's death, Yura moved to Samura's house and struck a deal. Samura would assist the Hishaku in eliminating the enchanted blade bearers in exchange for learning each Hishaku member's identity, the insider within the Kabunabi, and the locations of the enchanted blades. Yura comments on the extent of Samura's actions, including Chihiro's death, and Samura explains Chihiro would have obstructed his goal. Yura praises Samura's conviction. Hirohiku, shocked that Samura ended Chihiro, declares he will one day confront Samura to avenge him. Samura acknowledges Hirohiku's contract with Kumiyori and promises he will face the Hishaku in due time. The Hishaku physician realizes the risk of their deal. While eliminating the sword bearers would be simpler, Samura's insider knowledge makes him a serious threat to the Hishaku as well. Samura notes the Hishaku had sealed and relocated Kumiyori and approves the move. He adds that if any blade were unsealed, he could detect it and warns the Hishaku not to attempt anything with the blades. Yori reports that the remaining 2 Sanso have been evacuated and speculates on Shiba's involvement, estimating about a week to uncover the Kabunabi's new strategy. Samura instructs him to report back afterward, then vanishes. The Hishaku physician worries their reliance on Samura was risky, believing they used their trump card too soon. Yura agrees it was unfortunate but necessary and urges his subordinates to take more decisive action. Elsewhere, Samura reflects that in 1 week everything will be resolved and Chihiro can avoid following the path of Samura and the other Seitei War veterans. At 3:14 a.m. on November 10th, the Kabunabi leaders meet at their headquarters. Azami recounts Hakuri's report on Udoha and Samura's conversation, leaving Izaru frustrated at Samura's betrayal, seeing him as the last ally they needed opposing them. The next scarf-wearing leader asks about Hakuri's condition. Azami explains that while physically stable, his sorcery pathways were severely damaged, requiring intensive care with no guarantee of full recovery. The sideburned leader notes Shinichi as their only remaining option, with the sealing process 3/5 complete. When another leader suggests using Shinichi, Izaru rejects it, pointing out Owl's presence in the sky and its detection ability for enchanted blade level spirit energy. He recalls Samura's insistence on preventing the Hishaku from misusing the blades and trusts the statement. With the other 2 enchanted blade bearers confirmed hidden, Izaru advises letting Samura and the Hishaku wear each other down, keeping Shinichi in reserve while consolidating defenses and preparing an ambush. Elsewhere, Chihiro lies in a hospital bed, still shaken by Udoha's death and Samura's near attack. Shiba explains that Chihiro had actually died, but his slash wounds healed minutes later, leaving him nearly restored. Chihiro realizes his contract with Enten is broken and asks about the blade's location. Shiba suggests Samura may have planned Chihiro's revival, likely linked to Tobiune, and offers 2 reasons for temporarily eliminating him, as a warning to Shiba that he couldn't protect Chihiro, and as a message to Chihiro to halt his revenge mission. Chihiro notes that Shiba clearly received the warning. He then questions why Samura would spare him yet target Udoha and ask about the Seitei War, but they are interrupted by Ro. Ro introduces himself as head of the Masumi ninja clan, Samura's former bodyguards, and explains they had been knocked out and fired before they could act. He updates Chihiro on Hakuri, who blamed himself for Udoha's death, and asks the Masumi to watch over Chihiro. Ro emphasizes their duty and determination to help resolve the situation, recalling Hakuri had saved their lives transporting Tobiune. Chihiro asks about Udoha, but Shiba explains he hasn't confirmed anything yet and is negotiating with the morgue for information. Frustrated, Chihiro refuses to accept the uncertainty and insists on uncovering the truth, determined to confront Samura and acknowledge the consequences of his actions. Ro supports Chihiro, advising him to rest briefly before a new assignment with the Masumi to meet Samura. Shiba warns that Samura may claim Enten if Chihiro dies again, but entrusts the blade to him, and Chihiro resolves not to die again, which Shiba holds him to that statement. Elsewhere, the Kabunabi leader recognizes Samura as a bigger threat than the Hishaku and debate whether they have enough fighters to counter him, noting Chihiro's resurrection and the Masumi's skills. Kaisen reflects that the Masumi are uniquely capable of fighting alongside Samura and potentially his deadliest opponents. Later, in a park, an elevator arises, and Chihiro and the Masumi step out. On November 13th at 11:20 a.m., Chihiro and the Masumi meet at a cafe. The Masumi's efficiency in arranging Chihiro's food and drink prompts him to remark they are overprotective, though Ro notes Chihiro hasn't fully healed and is their interim master. When asked about Udoha, Chihiro admits there's been no news, and the group reflects on the challenges of tracking the Kabunabi, Hishaku, and Samura, noting the stalemate between them. Moku approaches the intel Chihiro gained from Hirohiku, and the Masumi observe that Samura's trail is detectable via owl spirit energy. Drawing Enten could immediately reveal his location. While they acknowledge Samura is a threat, they also note his role in keeping the Hishaku in check, meaning removing him could destabilize the situation. Ro instructs Chihiro not to draw Enten, as they have a plan to use leverage against Samura. Meanwhile, in a Kabunabi office, a subordinate asks Izaru about a hostage. Izaru explains Samura had a single weakness, his daughter, but she had died 2 years ago from acute heart failure, preventing the Kabunabi from using her against him. At the cafe, Chihiro is surprised to learn Samura had a daughter. Ro recalls visiting Samura's house and mentions that Samura and his wife had divorced and were living separately. Ro notes that Samura views death as a way to separate from those he cares about. Moku adds that Samura had only given them one direct order, with Sumi revealing it involved faking his daughter Iori's death. 3 years ago, the Kabunabi began closely monitoring each sword-bearer's family, which Samura resented. He had anticipated they might use his daughter against him after his betrayal. Ro explains that Iori is living under a secret identity. When Chihiro asks if she could be used as a hostage, Ro firmly rejects the idea but notes the Hishaku could plan something against Samura, potentially involving Iori. Moku doubts it's possible since Iori is undetectable, while Ro points out record inconsistencies and timing as potential clues. Sumi notes that the protective spell placed on Iori makes her unrecognizable to anyone but the Masumi, including Samura and Iori herself, a necessary safeguard for her safety. Chihiro absorbs the information as Ro notes that Hishaku had already accomplished impossible feats, including eliminating Kunishige and undoing Shinichi's seal, so they must prepare for the worst. Chihiro asks if they can track the seal, and Sumi confirms she can monitor it, though nothing unusual has occurred. Sumi and Moku agree they should check on Iori, and Ro adds that bringing her under their protection would undermine both Samura and the Hishaku. Chihiro asks her location, learning she is in Kyoto. Elsewhere, Hishaku members Kaguri and Todo are in a restaurant seafood aisle. Kaguri carries a wrapped sword-shaped package, expressing a desire to cut something, while Todo warns him against carrying an unusable enchanted blade, which makes her nervous. Kaguri explains he needs to deepen his understanding of the blade, as Sojo advised, though he cannot yet feel it because it's contracted to someone else. Todo mentions Yura's message, "It's almost time." Kaguri notes Hirohiku's disorganized actions have complicated matters and explains that Yura spoils him too much. Todo defends the team, pointing out Hirohiku is restricted from using kumiyori and is seen folding paper cranes manually, his reattached arms still bearing visible stitches. Kaguri acknowledges the situation, noting they could at least eliminate targets again, and after a while, Todo reminds him their actual mission is to kidnap someone whose location they don't know, prompting Kaguri's frustration. After hearing Yura's message that she can't be found, Kaguri criticizes Yura and Hirohiku's reckless approach. Todo calms him, noting Yura said their objective would reveal itself if they waited. In a Kyoto classroom, Yori writes in a textbook. In a fleeting dream, Iori vaguely remembers someone calling her name and holding her hand. Her alarm clock then reaches 7 a.m., waking her. Shortly after, she greets her mother in the kitchen. Her mother asks if she slept well, and Iori groans in response. She narrates that her father left before she was born, so her mother had raised her alone. On the TV, news reports that an individual had caused harm to multiple people at a kabuki theater on the afternoon of the 9th, leaving Iori disgusted. She leaves for school, noting that reports of such incidents had become increasingly common and that 3 days ago, a strange object with large, owl-like eyes had appeared in the sky. Iori meets her friend, and the two chat amicably as they enter a classroom. Further thoughts revealed the object had caused much worry, and school had been cancelled for 2 days. The teacher announces the Kabunabi declared it safe, so classes would resume. Beside Iori, her other friend Ikora disagrees, claiming the object signals the apocalypse. When Iori's friend points out a mark on Ikora's face resembling Chihiro's scar, he dramatically claims it appeared when he woke up, proof of his mission to act in times of chaos. Iori's friend realizes Ikora was mimicking the theater incident's attacker, which Ikora found cool. Disgruntled, Iori points out that he was imitating someone who caused harm, and a chastened Ikora quickly rubs out the mark. A tired Iori collapses at her desk, confirming she's had that dream 3 days in a row. Her friends link it to the strange object in the sky, while Ikora dramatically claims she's been chosen. Iori notices the object outside, and a vision from her dream fills her mind. Suddenly, Kaguri crashes into the classroom, shattering a window. Glass grazes Iori's arm as she warns her classmates. He carries a standard katana. The enchanted blade is absent. Kaguri asks about Samura, and Todo explains they won't use her name and locating her by face would be futile since the photos were edited, but can locate her using a blood sample. She tests a nearby student's blood and confirms she isn't their target. Kaguri notes the process will take time as Todo instructs him to round up the female students and leave them unharmed. Suddenly, Ikora stands to confront the Hishaku duo, worrying Iori. He shouts about the danger from Kaguri breaking the window. Kaguri asks if they can target the boys, and Todo agrees. Kaguri moves forward but halts as Iori bravely steps in the way, surprising him and Todo. Ikora, sweating, asks why she intervened. Iori replies that it was because he stood up for them. Kaguri then asks Todo to check Iori's blood, and she closes her eyes, internally panicking at the danger she faces. Ro appears at the door just as Chihiro swings his wakizashi at Kaguri, who blocks it with his katana. Chihiro glances at a confused Ikora, realizing Iori is missing. She had been escorted downstairs by Ro, who explains that Sumi reports Iori's seal is breaking down. Whatever detection the Hishaku used had picked up a rough signal, though her identity remains protected. Ro wonders if an external factor caused this, not considering Owl's influence. Iori, feeling she's missing something in her life, asks Ro to tell her everything he knows. Surprised, Ro notes she may be unconsciously breaking her memory seal. Seeing her and Chihiro's determination, he comments that Samura underestimated them. He promised to explain the situation later and assures Iori that the Masumi will protect her from the Hishaku. Suddenly, Iori remembers her class and rushes back upstairs. Ro warns her that her classmates could be in danger if they don't intervene, so he ushers Iori outside. Sumi unfurls a scroll, summoning a motorcycle, and quickly mounts it, urging Iori to follow so they can escape. Upstairs, Chihiro remains in combat with Kaguri, who notices Chihiro's slight dismay as the students recognize him from the theater. Sumi's motorcycle revs, and Todo alerts Kaguri to the escapees. Kaguri shoves Chihiro forward before leaping through the window. Chihiro sees the students hiding, and Moku reminds him they need to leave, noticing he seems troubled. Recalling Ro's warning in the cafe to prioritize protecting Iori, Chihiro apologizes to Moku and prepares to pursue Kaguri. Moku stops him, explaining he and Ro will follow while Chihiro uses an alternative route. Chihiro worries about the Hishaku threat, but Moku reassures him that the plan is designed to avoid overloading any one person. Sumi and Iori flee through the city on the motorcycle, Iori noticing a katana button near the rear wheel. Kaguri and Todo pursue in a car, with Todo questioning why the Masumi exposed Iori so publicly. On the motorcycle, Iori points out how close the Hishaku's car are, but Sumi assures Iori she will be fine. From above, Ro throws 2 shuriken at the car, one explosive, hitting the driver in the front, causing it to tumble. Kaguri calmly exits mid-air and runs after them, leaving Todo trapped under the wreckage. Kaguri slices a bus in half to clear his path, demonstrating the Hishaku's disregard for civilians. Sumi realizes he's minimizing the time to reach them, while Chihiro stands in the road ahead of the motorcycle. Earlier in the cafe, Ro had noted Chihiro's new scars came from protecting civilians and acknowledged he had endured too much too quickly. Ro reminded Chihiro that taking the burden alone would only hurt him and his team. Now, he and the Masumi would share the responsibility as a team. In the present, Moku and Ro rescue the civilians from the bus. Sumi slides her bike sideways towards Chihiro, narrowly avoiding Kaguri's sword inches from her head. She hits the katana button, launching the motorcycle-mounted blade. Chihiro jumps to catch it, successfully blocking Kaguri's attack. Kaguri grins, noting Chihiro's renewed determination, while Chihiro feels the weight on his shoulders lift. Sumi quickly throws the sheath of Chihiro's newly acquired katana to him, and Iori glances back briefly before the motorcycle speeds off again. Kaguri declares he wants a proper sword bout, balancing his desire for the fight with his mission to capture Iori. He slashes forward, but Chihiro holds him off, noting that Kaguri and Todo weren't present 3 years ago. Chihiro recalled how Samura had halted his path of revenge, and he had acknowledged losing the right to pursue it. Earlier in the cafe, he told Ro they needed to resolve the situation before Hakuri recovered, admitting that relying on Hakuri had left him in a weakened state. Noting the large gap in swordsmanship skill between himself and masters like Udoha and Samura, Chihiro reflected on his own abilities. Although he had wielded Enten for 3 years longer than the sword bearers' 1.5 years, he recognized that they were already renowned for their skill before the war. While his synergy with Enten was strong, his fundamental swordsmanship still lagged, as no one had formally taught him. Determined to enhance his abilities with Enten, Chihiro viewed improving his swordsmanship as mandatory and prepared to face Kaguri without relying on the blade. Abruptly, Kaguri complained aloud, distracted by his overpowering desire to fight. He reared back a strike, which Chihiro quickly blocked, and the two exchanged blows again, Chihiro noting the impressive force and speed of Kaguri's attacks. From nearby, Ro observed that Kaguri had thus far relied solely on spirit energy enhanced swordsmanship, making it a fitting yet challenging first battle for Chihiro's first attempt to hone his skills. Kaguri suddenly paused mid-blade clash and demanded to know who had taught Chihiro to use swords. Chihiro admitted that no one had. Kaguri, noticing that Chihiro's spirit energy wasn't properly aligning with his strikes, grew annoyed at his apparent lack of development. Chihiro declared that he would learn swordsmanship technique on the spot, eliciting incredulity from Kaguri at the idea of improving through direct combat. Kaguri recalled how some time ago Yura had asked him to train Hirohiku in sword combat. Though he had agreed, Hirohiku had refused his instruction, preferring to learn on his own. That memory enraged Kaguri, and in the present he shouted that if Chihiro could not respect the art of the sword, he shouldn't bother attempting to use it. With all satisfaction from a proper duel lost, Kaguri resumed pursuit of the motorbike. Though disappointed, he was ultimately relieved to refocus on his mission. Ro moved to intercept him while Chihiro stared at his shaking hand. Knowing he could not master sword techniques instantly, he readied his katana in a deliberate stance. Drawing from Samura's model and remembering Udoha's advice that his technique involved building and containing spirit energy within the blade to explosively release it upon unsheathing, Chihiro assumed the EI White Purity style stance. Spirit energy bubbled around the scabbard as Chihiro unsheathed the katana and, in one swift motion, surged toward Kaguri, forcing the taller swordsman to block. Despite Chihiro's inexperience with EI, Kaguri was impressed by his proper execution and evident respect for the art of the sword. Yet he was again caught in decisive paralysis, torn between his desire to fight and his mission, recalling how he had left Todo under the fallen car to pursue Yori. The memory of Hirohiku's defiance and Yura's support tipped him over the edge. His desire to fight overwhelmed all else, and he shouted that he could no longer hold back as Sumi and Iori sped away. As Kaguri remained focused on Chihiro, Ro prepared a mandala on the rooftop to help Chihiro, Moku, and himself escape, signaling for Chihiro to continue buying time. Chihiro nodded, readying the EI White Purity style once more. Before he could execute another EI slash, Kaguri lunged forward. The spirit energy around Chihiro's katana sheath dissipated as he blocked the strike, grimacing at how long it was taking to gather his energy. Kaguri immediately recognized the technique, the EI White Purity style, and assumed that either Udoha or Samura must have trained him. Chihiro corrected him. He had never studied under a master. Kaguri froze, incredulous. The style, rare and demanding, had only been mastered by Itsuo Shirikai, Udoha, and Samura. To see Chihiro wield it without guidance was unthinkable. Chihiro recalled Shiba praising his Rokuhira eyes, inheriting his father Kunishige's ability to read and manipulate even the properties of Datenseki by sight. He mentally dissected every movement he had seen Udoha and Samura perform in the style. Ro signaled from below. The mandala completed. A smoke bomb erupted, and Chihiro, Ro, and Moku vanished. Frustrated, Kaguri returned to Todo beneath the overturned car, reporting Iori's escape. Elsewhere, the motorcycle entered the Kyoto Bloodshed Hotel. General Manager Yojiro Sengoku greeted the guests, assuring them the hotel guaranteed safety and that threats were unacceptable. A barrier blocked every sorcery-based detection. Sengoku acknowledged Sumi, who noted ongoing construction above. She explained to Iori that while she couldn't be detected inside, the Hishaku might still inspect areas beyond detection. Ro added they'd be safe for a short while. After booking a room, Chihiro, Iori, and the Masumi settled in. Iori thanked the Masumi for their protection and introduced herself. Seeing Chihiro in action, she realized the reports portraying him as dangerous had been a misunderstanding. Ro agreed, noting Chihiro always puts others first. Chihiro clarified that he had acted decisively in dangerous situations, unlike Iori, much to Ro's exasperation and Moku's quick shoulder massage to ease the tension. Still, he vowed his experiences meant he would ensure Iori's safety. Ro had earlier explained that Iori was beginning to recall Samura due to their subconscious bond, allowing the Hishaku to detect her, so they needed to avoid mentioning him until the Masumi could fully seal all traces. Seeing Chihiro's doubt, Ro explained that when they first activated the seal, Samura had decided Iori, who had never witnessed war, was better off forgetting her father's past actions. Chihiro fell silent, asking only how long the seal would take. Ro assured Iori that she could return to her normal life within 24 hours and apologized for the danger she faced. Iori, puzzled, recalled his promise to explain why people were after her and hesitantly asked who Samura was. Her voice softened as she admitted she couldn't return to her life while feeling she was forgetting something vital. Ro explained that they had manipulated her memories, but her mind was now trying to recover them. Remembering a reoccurring dream, Iori wondered if it had been a memory. Ro replied he could not confirm, as revealing too much might jeopardize her safety and her ability to return to normal life, reassuring her everything would be solved by tomorrow. Iori questioned whether she was truly better off forgetting, faintly recalling someone holding her hand. Watching her, Chihiro briefly wondered what his life might have been like as a normal teenager, free of scars and battles with his father. Still, he wouldn't trade his experiences. He asked Ro if a breach of the seal within the hotel would alert the Hishaku, and Ro confirmed it would not. Chihiro suggested letting Iori decide whether to forget. Ro opened his mouth to object, but stopped. Chihiro sat beside Iori and promised to tell her everything he knew about Seiichi Samura, the person in her memories. He explained that within 24 hours the new seal would be ready and she could choose whether to forget. At 11:11 p.m., he emphasized that the choice was hers. Ro noted mentally that if she rejected the seal, both the Kabunabi and the Hishaku would relentlessly pursue her. Chihiro resolved that by improving his swordsmanship, he would approach Enten's true realm, committing to master the EI White Purity style in 24 hours. Out loud, he vowed that regardless of Iori's choice, he would protect her. Reflecting on her life, Iori realizes it hadn't been unhappy, yet she always sensed something missing. She asks who Seiichi Samura is to her, and Chihiro quietly answers, her father. Ro passes her a snack as she tries to process it, initially denying it, then recalling Ro's earlier words about her altered memories. Ro explains that she once lived with her father before the Masumi erased her memories for her safety. Her surname and records were falsified. Her true name was Iori Samura. Iori demands to know why her memories had to be sealed. Chihiro shows her a slip of paper with Seiichi Samura's name and asks what she knows about the Seitei War. It was stated how 22 years ago, an island emerged southeast of Japan along with Datsenseki, a stone capable of amplifying spirit energy. Immune to its side effects, the island's inhabitants launched an invasion, which ended a year later when Kunishige Rokuhira's 6 enchanted blades brought peace. Among the 6 was Samura, whose unmatched speed made him a living legend. Ro explains that because of Samura's importance, Iori could have been used as leverage against him. To protect her, her identity was erased. As the seal weakens, Iori's memories resurface, moments with her father, her childhood drawings, and the warmth of his hand. Then flashes of his struggles follow, revealing the difficult life he lived and how public hostility forced him to distance himself. Overwhelmed by the information and memories, Iori collapses, clutching her head, and Chihiro and Ro quickly help her to a bed where she sleeps. Later, the two discuss the situation. Ro says her reaction was natural given how abruptly her reality shifted. He mentions Iori's mother, but Chihiro advises silence. They want Iori to have the freedom to return to a peaceful life if she chooses. Her truth was painful, but Chihiro believed it's her choice whether to live with it or let it go, and their duty is to support her either way. On the rooftop construction site, the hotel's unfinished 35th floor, Sumi and Moku prepare the sealing ritual. Because the hotel forbids sorcery inside, the ritual must be done above. Sumi explains that erasing Iori's link to Samura requires rewriting every trace of her memory. Moku grumbles they'll be working all night, while Sumi warns that any disruption could draw the attention of the hotel's guards, disciples of the Reigen one-sword style under General Manager Sengoku. Meanwhile, in the lobby below, Sengoku notices a woman bearing the Hishaku insignia, Todo. Beside her sits Hirohiku, whom she warns not to use Kumiyori under any circumstances. He reveals a hairpin and asks if Samura's daughter is inside. Todo replies that she's somewhere within the building, and she and Kaguri are narrowing down the locations. When a hotel staff member approaches to remind them of the no sorcery rule, Hirohiku swiftly defeats him with his own blade. He plants the sword into the ground and ties his hair with the hairpin, saying he'll rely on his skill rather than forbidden techniques. Sengoku approaches the 2 Hishaku members, recognizing the insignia on Todo's hand. Todo quickly gauges his strength. He's a master of the Reigen one-sword style with more than 50 disciples. Hirohiku asks why Sengoku approaches alone, and Sengoku replies that he represents the hotel's long-standing sword tradition. The blades meet, Sengoku's strike lands with crushing weight, and Hirohiku struggles to hold his ground. Todo observes that while Hirohiku's sorcery talent is formidable, his swordsmanship lacks refinement, leaving him at a disadvantage. As Sengoku declares that Hirohiku will be tested by 150 years of sword history, Hirohiku reacts instinctively, switching hands mid-swing and countering with unexpected precision. Both land apart, and to everyone's shock, Sengoku's arm falls to the floor. Calmly assessing the situation, Sengoku admits the move was unpredictable and asks who trained Hirohiku. Hirohiku replies that he has no master, calling himself a student of freedom. Sengoku narrows his gaze, vowing not to give him another opening. Elsewhere, Iori awakens and asks Chihiro for the time. He replies that it's dawn on November 14th, and the Masumi are finalizing the seal on the rooftop. Iori wonders if he's been guarding her all night. Chihiro explains that he took turns with the Masumi and trained during the breaks. When she asks about the school, he says he's never attended, surprising her with his matter-of-fact attitude toward combat. Iori reflects on her past life of simple worries and realizes that remembering her true history may make returning impossible. Seeing her inner conflict, Chihiro reveals that he is the son of Kunishige Rokuhira, comparing their similar circumstances of children of war veterans. Though he once believed facing the truth was always best, he admits the decision should rest entirely with her. Their conversation is interrupted when a man bursts in with a knife. Chihiro quickly disarms him and learns he was bribed to attack. Moments later, doors open throughout the hall as more assailants appear. Shutting the door and telling Iori to stay inside, Chihiro quickly makes work of the Yakuza, Iori partially witnessing the scene through the peephole. And honestly, let's take a moment to appreciate just how sick this panel is. Iori's POV lets us feel both the danger and the awe as it all unfolds. Anyway, when he calls out that it's safe, Iori glimpses the aftermath and trembles. She asks if he's afraid of taking lives, and Chihiro replies that he isn't, which is precisely why her path is different. As they head for the rooftop, he reassures her that there's no wrong choice, only her own. After thinking, Iori quietly says she wants to return to her peaceful life. When the elevator doors open, Hirohiku stands before them, holding Sengoku's head in his hand with a grin. He declares she's ready to face Chihiro once again, and Chihiro vows to protect Iori's chance at peace. Chihiro quickly deduces that Hirohiku and the Hishaku were behind the attempted attack on his room, having bribed a guard to gain access. Hirohiku, aware that many hotel guests are converging on the area, taunts Iori, claiming her existence as a weakness of her father. He throws Sengoku's head toward her in a calculated attack, but Chihiro intervenes just in time, blocking the strike and assessing a nearby elevator descending from the roof. He slices the cords, holding the elevator in place, and the room falls downwards. Still in the hallway, Iori is in shock that Chihiro had left her, remembering the numerous Yakuza approaching. As more emerge from the elevators, she panics, repeatedly pressing the elevator buttons. Ro appears just in time, efficiently neutralizing the intruders and guiding her into the elevator. He reassures Iori that the Masumi had completed the memory seal, allowing her to safely return to her normal life. While she worries about the lasting impact of the events at her school, Ro explains that the seal will leave others' memories hazy, though the consequences of any casualties remain. He notes that their first attempt at the seal had been incomplete, failing to account for parent-child connections, but now it could be perfectly executed, though they still needed a key to power the hotel's barrier. The Masumi had talked to Sengoku earlier and arranged to borrow it temporarily to complete the seal, though it was now downstairs. Iori tells Ro that Chihiro had headed downstairs, and Ro decided to leave it to him. Meanwhile, inside the falling elevator, Chihiro and Hirohiku clash mid-air. Chihiro studies Hirohiku's unconventional freedom sword style, noticing how he constantly shifts his grip and positioning to exploit blind spots. Hirohiku's attacks, though lacking formal technique, are powered by spirit energy and unpredictable enough to challenge Chihiro's skills. A hotel staff manager witnessed the duel, recognizing Hirohiku's audacious but skilled maneuvers, and is left in awe, recalling Sengoku's teachings that there are no shortcuts, only mastered through effort and observation. Yet the staff member breaks down into tears as he swears that there are geniuses in the world. He tells Chihiro that Hirohiku's swordsmanship seemed invisible as the youth himself darts out of the broken elevator. With a clear read on Hirohiku's unpredictable freedom style, Chihiro dodges a slash and counters, the two moving apart swiftly. Hirohiku, surprised by Chihiro's speed, grows excitedly by the challenge. Frustrated that his attack was evaded, Chihiro realizes he must increase the pace of his white purity style. Determined, he resolves to outmaneuver Hirohiku and reach the roof. Back with Ro and Iori, she reflects on her decision. She chooses to return to her ordinary, peaceful life, not simply rejecting the truth of her past, but embracing the safety and normalcy the seal provides. Knowing her father's attention is elsewhere, she assumes Samura is okay with forgetting her and that she was the only one struggling with the hole in her heart. She then confirms her choice to Ro. Moku greets Iori and Ro as they arrive on the rooftop, asking about Chihiro. Ro explains that, with Sengoku gone, Chihiro had gone to retrieve the key. He assures Iori the seal will be activated and she'll return to her normal life once Chihiro arrives. Despite her early decision, Iori still struggles with guilt over the chaos caused by her presence. An elevator door opens and Kaguri steps out, prompting Ro to engage him. Sumi and Moku quickly escort Iori away, but more Yakuza emerge from the construction areas and elevators. Moku notices the first group, recruited by the Hishaku, act almost instinctively, confirming his suspicion. Though weaker than the Yakuza at Second Tsuji, their numbers are far greater. Ro mocks the Hishaku for hiring inexperienced Yakuza, but Kaguri warns that the Masumi are in trouble. The aggressive Yakuza shout that they will reach Samura's daughter, but Masumi intercepts them, shielding a terrified Iori. Clutching her head with tears in her eyes, Iori realizes that keeping her memories could endanger others. Convinced she only brings harm, she shuts her eyes and falls into despair. The day before, after Kaguri and Todo left the school to pursue Sumi and Iori, Ikora approached Chihiro, frantically asking about Iori. Chihiro explained the gang was after her and that he and his allies were protecting her, instructing Ikora not to follow. Ignoring the warning, Ikora ventured into Kyoto's criminal districts that night. Eventually, he spotted Todo, recognized her from the attack, and followed her to the Kyoto Bloodshed Hotel, hiding as Hirohiku struck down the staff. Learning the Hishaku were heading for Iori, Ikora froze in fear. At the hotel, Ikora clenched his bandaged hand, reflecting on how much Iori's kindness had meant to him. His fear faded as he marked his head with blood, mimicking Chihiro's scar. Resolute, he approached Chihiro and Hirohiku, declaring his intent to protect Iori, no matter the cost. Hirohiku attacked, but Chihiro blocked him and handed Ikora the key, instructing him to deliver it to Ro on the rooftop while hoping his presence would strengthen Iori's resolve. Ascending in the elevator, Ikora called out to Iori, praising her friendship and insisting she return from the danger. As the approaching Yakuza took notice, Iori's determination solidified. She understood she had to protect the ordinary lives of people like Ikora. The seal on her memory shattered completely, restoring her full recollection as Seichi Samura's daughter, including her exceptional swordsmanship. She dashed forward, seizing a katana from a Yakuza and unsheathing it just in time to block a strike aimed at Ikora, leaving him astonished at her skill. Meanwhile, after seeing Chihiro send Ikora away with the key, Hirohiku immediately realizes Chihiro has a plan to help Iori escape and presses the button for the elevator next to him. Determined to stop him, Chihiro speeds forward to intercept, but Hirohiku blocks him and Chihiro notes that his speed is still not sufficient. It is revealed that many years ago, Master Swordsman Izuo Shirikai believed the fastest swordsman was the strongest and developed stances to achieve maximum speed in both movement and slashing. Many had mocked his approach, as the EI White Purity style required holding the katana with the blade facing the wrist, completely opposite the standard position, where the fingers meet the palm, aligned with the edge. A practitioner of Shirikai's style needed to rotate the blade 180 degrees after unsheathing before striking a target. Shirikai silenced his critics by proving the style's effectiveness in combat, defeating them all. On the night of November 13th, after Iori had fallen asleep, Chihiro trained in the White Purity style but struggled. Ro asked what the problem was, and Chihiro explained that he was losing speed and power due to the unconventional blade position. Ro noted that this was a common challenge with the style. Swordsmen must focus to charge their katana with spirit energy, and the rotation and re-gripping required by the White Purity style often disrupted that concentration, weakening both speed and striking strength. He advised Chihiro to merge with his katana through spirit energy, treating it as a natural extension of his body rather than an external tool, something requiring exceptional intuition, which is why so few mastered the style. Reflecting on his experience layering spirit energy over himself and his blade with Nishiki, Chihiro understood Ro's point, though he knew he still had far to go. In the present, Hirohiku attacks Chihiro, shifting his blade lightning fast between hands before striking. As their blades clash in a flurry, Chihiro notices that Hirohiku maintains the power behind every strike despite constantly repositioning his weapon. It is revealed that Hirohiku first defended himself lethally at the age of 3 against an assailant. With combat ingrained in his life, manipulating spirit energy comes instinctively to him. Combined with his unpredictable movements and elite survival instincts, Hirohiku had developed an entirely unique and free-flowing sword style born of impulse and intuition. Slashing from behind his back, Hirohiku presses his attack, and Chihiro expertly blocks, forcing Hirohiku to note his opponent's skill. Chihiro reminds himself that though Hirohiku is exceptional, he has his own abilities. There's no reason he can't overcome him with his own methods. Charging again, Chihiro faces Hirohiku as the latter leaps onto the ceiling, mocking the use of kata and tradition. Hirohiku descends rapidly, mirroring the stance Chihiro had used in their previous clash, and as Chihiro parries, he realizes, stunned, that Hirohiku has also tapped into the White Purity style. Chihiro is knocked to the floor by the impact as Hirohiku heads for the elevator. Panic rises, but a staff member points out a prepared elevator for Chihiro. As they ascend, he cools his mind and focuses, visualizing the regrip method. Hirohiku realizes that his usual free-flowing flowing movements, effective against Sengoku, won't work on Chihiro. Sheer speed will be necessary. Chihiro recalls Samura's demonstration, dissecting every detail in his mind. The elevator doors open onto the roof. Chihiro and Hirohiku stand ready, blades in the white purity stance, and dash forward at each other. In a fraction of a second, Chihiro notices Yori, drawing on the EI white purity style her seal had locked away. Momentarily stunned by her skill, Chihiro quickly refocuses, analyzing her execution. Even with her eyes closed, Iori delivers precise, non-lethal slashes that disable the fingertips of every nearby Yakuza, leaving them unable to grip their weapons. Her speed isn't just her father's, but her form perfectly illustrates the missing elements in Chihiro's style. In the blink of an eye, Hirohiku and Chihiro charge, and Chihiro adjusts his grip. With a whirlwind of motion, he blitzes past Hirohiku and delivers a decisive slash, breaking Hirohiku's blade in two. As his mind settles from the intense focus, Chihiro turns to Iori, who opens her eyes. To find out what happens next in Kagurabachi, you're going to want to click on this video right here.